A quick note before we get into the episode. Oversharing is a podcast for entertainment purposes only. It is not a medical podcast and does not constitute medical or psychological advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or mental health professional. Hello and welcome back to Oversharing. I'm Jordana Abraham.
And I am Dr. Naomi Bernstein.
How's it going? I see you have the poor man's facelift that we discussed.
Yes, I got inspired and I pulled it all up. How does it look?
It looks tight.
No, it's a good look. And especially if you don't have time to do your hair. So here we are, Monday morning after a little holiday weekend. I hosted several of our family members. And in the midst of hosting 3, 4, 5 people at varying times, then Lila had her 14th birthday sleepover. So she had 5 girls over, 6 actually. So
14.
Yeah.
It's like a real teenager.
13's
like a little tweenie.
Just barely a teenager. So I'm like, she's having these girls over. It's a sleepover. And I'm kind of trying to find my place. Like, how involved do I get? Am I the MC of activities, or am I just kind of hanging out?
Are you trying to be the cool mom, or are you trying to be
I don't know.
It's very hard.
Looking for my mom identity. So I did come up with an idea for a game, which I thought was really fun, and it went well.
Okay.
So it was like a beer pong, but instead of beer, I put assorted different beverages into little cups, but some of them were really gross, or what I would think they would think were really gross, like olive juice or chicken broth. And then then there was maraschino cherry juice and fruit punch and Snapple. So when they make it in, the other team has to drink whatever cup they made. And they loved it. They were cheering.
That's fun.
And they were having such a good time. So that was a proud teen mom moment.
Yeah. Some might say you're teaching them how to play beer pong, but it's, I'm just kidding. No, I think that's great. I love it. Yeah.
It was really fun. I did put coffee in one, but it was the tiniest little sip of coffee. And I'm sure these girls are getting Starbucks anyway.
Yeah. I think I was having Starbucks Frappuccinos from when I was 12 years old. Are you not supposed to have coffee as a teenager? I don't know.
I try to keep my kids away from caffeine. I think there's a old wives' tale that it stunts your growth, which I don't think is actually true. I just think it's maybe a little addictive and probably not great for their constitution, but I don't think it's really that bad.
My friends and I were definitely hanging out in Starbucks, just loitering around when we were in middle school.
And what I heard is that those Starbucks refreshers that even 8 and 10-year-olds are drinking have caffeine in them. So
gateway drug.
Yep. It's kind of true.
I mean, if that's the worst thing they're into at 14, I think that
totally
you're going to be okay.
It's so funny because I'm looking at these girls and I'm there's no way they're drinking alcohol. And then I'm thinking I had probably tried alcohol by the time I was 15.
Not my Lila. She would never.
No, she's not. But it was really fun. They had a great time. I was really proud because I was able to be with them. I want to know her friends too. And I want to be in the space with them to get to know them. But she was, I think I'm cool. She was fine with my involvement. I did chat GBT it about how to, and chat GBT said place the things in the space, but don't be overbearing about
ChatGPT.
Yes.
ChatGPT's your therapist.
how to not embarrass her, but I wanted to be involved and have fun with it.
It's so funny. You're going to have a whole generation that's just raised by ChatGPT.
Right?
Their holy father.
It's really kind of sad. It's embarrassing, but
well, I have a question for you as you enter this teenage phase and you have Maddie right behind her.
Right behind.
What do you think of when you hear the old saying of I'm not your friend, I'm your mom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to be your friend. Do you think that that's something that you adhere to, or do you think that's a little too harsh?
No, I mean, I think it's a little too hard. I think it depends on the situation. If it's they're telling me that they're going to go to a party where they're planning on drinking, I'm not going to be yeah, let me know how it goes. Or I'm not going to just be in it with them. I think it's too extreme. But my goal for myself is that, and I work on this every day, is I really want to be a safe space for them. So I want them, I don't want them to feel like I'm going to be angry or punitive or get like my emotions are going to get wrapped up in what they're doing. Like I need to be cool and calm and like ask questions and listen. And then I think that's going to set the tone for them naturally to make the right choices. So I'm not going to be all giddy in it if they're like, yeah, we're going to, my friends are going to go try to get alcohol at the 7-Eleven. Like, isn't that so funny? And I'm going to be like, yeah, let me know if you get it. But I also really want, and this is the hardest thing that I work on with all of my kids, but especially as they get older, is just listening and not giving advice. That's the friend part that I think I see how they interact with each other. Like when they're listening to each other, like all these girls in their friend group, there's really not a ton of advice giving. It's more just like listening and empathizing, and maybe a little bit, if it gets serious, they'll be like, well, maybe you could tell your mom, or do you think you could talk to them about it? That's it. They're not like what the parental urge is to be like, you need to tell her that that's not acceptable and she can't talk to you like that. I have to resist that.
You're not supposed to do that?
Not really.
Why?
Because it doesn't allow them to figure it out. And it makes them feel like now they're going to come to you and now now they have to handle your emotions on top of whatever. They have to handle the fact that now I'm mad, or even like the Jewish comment. Like I've told you before, I live in a place where there's very few Jews, and every now and then they'll get a little comment. And in the beginning, it was very like intensely like, you have to tell the principal and I'm going to call. And she's like, please, like, do not call. Like so once there were a couple, I told you about the thing with like the porn on the bus.
Yes. That was like a few years ago.
Yeah. So I called and like it got back, like they kind of knew it was her that somehow.
Right.
What did that kid say? It was so funny. I smell a rat.
Yes.
So like I've kind of learned that if I keep doing that and I call the principal every time she tells me something, she's going to stop telling me things. I know I need to do more of the like, well, how did that make you feel? And what do you think you should do? And, oh, wow, that must have, I don't know, did that hurt your feelings? Or just
like
kind of.
You would a real patient.
Exactly. I have to treat my kids the way I would treat my patients, where I'm not like shoving my opinion down their throat and telling them what to do. I'm more just like curious and a safe space, which is hard because I'm like, oh my gosh, someone's being mean to you. I want to kill them.
Right.
But that's not the way to go.
But if they ask you, like, what do you think I should say? You can answer that.
I'm like, oh, great opening.
Right.
I would love that question. But the funny thing is sometimes they do, but most of the time I really think in general, people just want you to be with them in it. They really don't want advice. Like most people have thought about this before they come to you. They know their options.
No, that's good advice even for like a friend.
Totally.
Or someone people ask all the time, I don't like my friend's boyfriend. And I think we kind of give that same advice of like, don't like give your advice unless it's asked for, but instead just like be there as someone they can complain to without having your own emotions in it.
Once you have your own emotions, now this person who's already overwhelmed is handling their emotions and now your emotions. And at least what I've noticed with my tween teens is that they open up more, the conversation goes better, and they end up calmer at the end of the conversation when I don't bring my own emotions into it.
That's a great point. I think that's great advice for any any person. I don't think it even has to just be about kids, but probably especially kids, because they're like the things people you want to make sure tell you things.
Totally. And even with little kids, it's the same advice. Like if they're worked up or tantruming, you have to stay calm and you have to not get wrapped into a power struggle thing with them. Like I cannot let you act like that, because then it means something about me as a parent, as a person. Now I have to make this tantrum stop. And now I'm getting tense because I have to make this tantrum stop, versus, okay, this is just a tantrum. It'll run its course. It means nothing about me as a parent, my child. It's just a moment, and I need to let them kind of have that moment.
Love that. I'm going to try that with Ron.
Yeah, try.
Next time he gets into his witching hour.
Yes. My favorite way to look at it, and this is what I tell a lot of patients, is the zoom out and it works so well for teenagers. And I think it could work well for small kids, or even any moment that's a hard moment. If you zoom out and you're like, I'm my 95-year-old self on my deathbed, and I'm like getting to watch over my life and be like a little ghost in the corner of the room. And I'm watching let's say for you, I'm watching my, 36-year-old self, like doing the thing, parenting these two babies. Maybe they're both screaming at the same time, or what you're just like above it, kind of watching it all. And it doesn't mean, it's just a moment on the course of this huge life that you have. It takes the intensity and the meaning out of it. So when I'm sitting with one of my kids and they're like hysterical crying because somebody said something really mean to them, I can zoom out and just watch this moment. Like, oh, look at this little parenting teenage moment that we were in, versus like I'm in the moment. Like I need to make this person be nicer. I need to make her feel better. This feels so terrible. It really makes the whole thing feel less charged and more of like an opportunity for a bigger picture connection than solving that little problem.
I'm going to try that.
Yeah. Try it. Try it with Ron. You could try it with Mike.
Try it with the whole family.
Works all around.
Well, I'm glad she had a fun sleepover.
I do think they had fun.
A real big kid now. Let's get into our show. We have a voicemail today. If you have a voicemail, you can leave us one at 646-363-6294, or you can email us at oversharing@betches.com. As always, if you want to subscribe to this podcast, you get all the episodes the day early and ad-free. And you get 2 bonus episodes a month. We take feedback in the bonus episodes. We talk to a listener. We give them like a little mini therapy session. So subscribe if you haven't yet. It seems people really enjoy the subscription episodes. Or you can join one of Dr. Naomi's therapy groups.
Yes, you can find us at naomibernstein.com. I will give a little caveat that there are some states that, if you live in that state, I can't take you into the group. So I should say that somebody was a little disappointed that they couldn't get in. I have what's called a SciPact license. And so I think there are, over 30 states that work, or 35 states, something like that work. But there are some states that won't, that will not be able to join. But come reach out, naomibernstein.com. See if your state is one of those states. Come join our group. It's a really beautiful community. A lot of people that join end up sticking around for quite a while, because it does feel like you find a little home, a little virtual home, and some self-growth on the side. So naomibernstein.com. Come find us.
Love that. Let's get into our episode. I will read our first email. Hi, Jordana and Naomi. I've been a long-time listener and love your insights and sisterly dynamic. I'm writing for advice on letting go of misplaced anger following a difficult friendship breakup. Love a friendship breakup story. I want to preface this all with saying that it's a rather complicated scenario in which I do truly see both sides. But TLDR, my best friend Amy and I lived together in the apartment for a year, after which she left to move in with her boyfriend. After leaving, she kept the apartment in her name because the landlord wouldn't support a change of name and ownership. She offered to allow me to stay with the idea that the place was now mine, but just under her name. Looking back now, I was afraid of stirring things up with management and changing the lease to my name because I wasn't sure if they'd make me reapply all over again and if the rent would go up. However, I now understand that because it's a rent stabilized building, that it wouldn't have increased by enough to cause a problem, and I regret not changing it to my name that first year. All that to say, she thought she was doing me a favor by holding on to the unit. We remained friends and got even closer once she left. I lived in the apartment without her for 3 years since, and it really became my home and cozy space. I made a lot of changes that cost me a lot of time and money because I thought I'd lived there for a long time. Each year I renewed, I asked if it was okay with her, and she assured me yes, and once mentioned that she liked the idea that if her and her boyfriend were to break up, she'd have this place to live. That should have been a red flag, but I figured it was a weird reassurance just to her mind. Fast forward to this year. I spent 6 months living abroad for work, and my new roommate, not Amy, held down the fort while I was away. 2 weeks before returning, and after a lot of stress and emotional turmoil abroad, which she knew about and talked to me for hours about on the phone, I get a text message, a text, not a call, not a message asking to talk about something serious. We had been talking on the phone just 2 weeks prior, from Amy saying that she was so sorry to be sending the message, but that she would be moving in and taking the apartment back at the end of the next month because she and her boyfriend couldn't afford the lease anymore, and that my roommate and I would need to leave 5 weeks from that message. For a little more context, her boyfriend quit his job working on Wall Street to start his own business and is making a lot less money by choice, now making slightly less than I do, and has an incredibly large savings because of that time in finance. Regardless, I understand that their situation is stressful and did get it at the moment. At first, I asked for more time. I said the timing was particularly difficult for me as she knew I wasn't even home from abroad and that I didn't have a job lined up to apply for apartments with or a terribly good income after living and working abroad at a much lower wage. I even called my mom and discussed the possibility that I might have to move cross country back home because it put me in such a tough spot, and I shared that with her. She said, unfortunately, she couldn't extend it all as her lease was up, yada, 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 and didn't offer to let me crash if I needed longer to stay, which actually hurt the most. For context, the apartment has 3 bedrooms, and as a couple that would leave 2 rooms open if I needed an extra couple of weeks to search or get back on my feet. Though I've since secured a new job in the last 2 weeks and moved this past weekend to a new apartment and was able to stay in New York City after all, I feel deep resentment. I feel she prioritized her unstable 4-year relationship over our friendship, leaving me to navigate a high-stress relocation during a vulnerable time. I feel that she also has been inconsiderate in her attempts to reach out and act as if she's trying to find another place when there are plenty of other apartments, and if my roommate and I could find one with a similar income, why can't she? She has reached out to explain her side, but her messages felt self-serving rather than truly apologetic to me. I have no interest in hashing it out or maintaining the friendship because this was so hurtful, but the stress and anger are still lingering physically. Do you have a mantra or perspective to help me finally move past the situation? Thank you so much for your insight. Sincerely, an apartment ended my friendship.
Yeah, I could see why she's really upset about this. This seems like a bit of a bait and switch.
It's a rent stabilized apartment. That's why she wants to stay in the apartment, right? The fact that it's rent stabilized to me means that it's a lower price than what you would get on the market for a regular apartment of that size.
Right.
And it's in the friend's name. I assume that the friend had it before she lived with the person who's writing it. You know, our uncle used to have a rent stabilized apartment in New York City. And there was like sort of a similar situation with this where he like moved out and other people in our family, like our brothers, moved in. But then when he would come back, he would take the apartment back. So it was sort of like a favor.
But that didn't sound like how this was presented. This sounded like it was presented as it's just like a formality that we're not switching this into your name because the landlord wouldn't support it, which was weird because you think the landlord would support it if it was going to mean that it was going to be unstabilized at that point if they switched it.
Well, that's, I think, what she meant. I think like she meant, if I change this to my name, it's no longer like, I don't know if
get the same price.
Yeah. I don't know if this is New York City or not, but the way it would work in New York City is like, once you give up the apartment, they can now charge whatever the market rate is.
I think that would all have been fine if that's how it was presented. Like if the conversation was just very honest, this is a rent stabilized apartment. I'm going to let you live here for a little while. And if and when I want to come back, I have the right to come back. From what she wrote in this email, it sounded like the conversation was, that I was taking over the apartment. It was now mine, but just under her name. So I just think the communication around this in the beginning was not, if it is what you're saying, it would have just been a very obvious conversation. I'm very blessed to have this rent stabilized apartment. I'm going to keep it in my name because of that, because I don't want to give it up, because I want the opportunity to come back. And I'm going to do you a favor and let you live in here for a little while. It does sound like if this is New York City and it is a 3-bedroom apartment, that's pretty crazy. Like,
yeah, it's hard because like the conversation at this point was probably years ago, right? And it seems like a little vague as to how it was presented, where she says she kept the apartment in her name because the landlord wouldn't support a change of name and ownership. To me, that discussion would probably have centered around the fact that the price would have gone up, right? But like, and she says she offered to allow me to stay with the idea that the place was now mine, but just under her name. But if that was the case, why would she ask her every year if she could re-up?
Right.
Why wouldn't she just, I feel like there may have been some discussion of like, we're going to keep this in my name because then the rent will stay low. I don't want to give up this price for this apartment. Like, I just think there's no way she wouldn't have any idea that the fact that she would change it to her name means the price would go up.
The price would go up. Right. To me, it's so obvious that that's what they were, if that's what they were doing, it's so obvious that that's what they were doing that I don't understand why that wasn't just a clear conversation. Like, I'm blessed to have this apartment. I'm letting you stay in it. It's mine. When I want it back, I'm going to take it back versus like this.
But
sketchy,
she did say that. But didn't she say that? She said, oh, if I ever break up with my apartment, I'll be like coming back. She said that like one of the years that she re-upped.
But it was said as if like, I will come back and move in with you, not I will kick you out.
Yeah. I mean, what was this handled the nicest way? No, it seems like a little bit like there was, again, a little bit of like a lack of clear communication when she did it. Do I blame the friend for coming back and wanting the apartment back with her boyfriend without a third roommate? No. I think that's sort of, if it's in her name, maybe it's like a family apartment
situation that you're saying that it is. But if it wasn't presented like that, I still find it annoying. If it wasn't presented as like, I know I have a gem here, it's mine, I'm going to let you use it, versus like in name only. She was definitely using that legal hold that she had on the apartment, not just as like a little inconvenient thing that we're just going to slip away. It was, she wanted to maintain ownership over it, in that as a rental, because it was valuable, but it was never presented like that. That just does bother me. And I hear the fact that it's a 3-bedroom apartment. They have 2 open rooms. She could say, hey, stay for a few months until you figure out what your next move is, because she knew that she was a little stressed about the timeline.
Right. She could have said that. I agree. I also do think that 5 weeks is enough time to find a new apartment. It's not like she said, I'm coming back on Saturday, like I need you to be out. 5 weeks, especially, again, I don't know what every rental market is like. If she's talking about New York City, where I've lived, you can't even really look for an apartment before 5 weeks before you're supposed to move in, because the leases are so quickly turned around. So to me, it's not like, oh, are leaving me on the street. She's like, I'm giving you over a month to find a new place. The amount of time, the length of time that she gave as a thing, I think she could have offered, hoping she wouldn't say yes, because again, I think 5 weeks is a long enough time to not have to do that. Clearly, there's some miscommunication maybe about how this was presented. Maybe it was like vaguely present. Like maybe if the friend was here, she might say, I actually did tell her that I thought I was basically telling her, yeah, it's clear by saying I'll come back if I break up with my boyfriend, or I don't want to, the price is that we have such a good price, I'm going to keep it in my name for that reason. Because if I shared a lease with someone and they moved out and they wanted to keep the apartment in their name, I would have to have like a pretty strong understanding of why they would want that before just being like,
it's just annoying to have to reapply.
Right.
which doesn't sound like a legit reason to
That's what I'm saying.
take over the apartment.
To me, the idea that she wouldn't have some sense of like, she wants it in her name because it's a very good deal. So and in some ways she is doing her a favor if it's in her name. You take a risk by putting an apartment in your name. If she damaged it, it would be on the friend. Her name is on the lease. Like, she's liable for, if she didn't pay, the friend would have to pay, like the rent. So I think there would have to be some sort of understanding that like it was so that they could keep the price for this apartment down.
I don't know. She seems to have a misunderstanding about this listener, because as I'm reading this sentence, however, I now understand that it's because it's a rent stabilized building that it wouldn't have increased by enough to cause a problem. And I regret not changing it to my name that first year.
No,
so,
I don't think she understands how rent stabilized apartments work.
Right.
Like when our uncle left his rent stabilized apartment that he had in New York City, they paid him to leave.
That apartment was so big.
It was huge. Yeah. It's like, it wouldn't be like,
incredible.
It wouldn't have gone up like $50 a month. It would go back to the market rate.
Right. Which if that apartment probably was like $1,100 at the time, $1,100 a month or something, and it would have jumped to like $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
At the time.
Right. It wouldn't have stayed rent stabilized. They don't like do that. They don't make like new apartments that are rent stabilized.
Right. Based on that sentence, you're right. I don't think she understands what that means. And maybe the friend who did understand it, I guess it's not her job to explain it to her, but it does sound like some lines were crossed there in the way that it was presented as in name only, like just as like a throwaway. But no, it's not a throwaway. It's like a big, huge deal. It's like thousands of dollars a month. And
the friend was probably thinking like, I've been doing her this really big favor, letting her stay in my rent stabilized apartment for 3 years at this very low price where she's gotten this great deal. She should be thankful. And now like, I'm going to need it back.
Yeah. It was just, I think in the reality, but the way that it was communicated was, I think, a little sketchy, or like left out on purpose because she didn't want it to seem, or maybe it was just, I assume she knew exactly what was going on here and we were both on the same page. But yeah,
I can't imagine a situation where that was and I wouldn't think she would leaving it in her name so that she could eventually
move back.
Take it back.
Yeah.
And I also don't think like her boyfriend's finances have anything to do with it.
Yeah, no,
she's kind of bringing into it where she's like, well, he quit his job, but he has all this money saved. Like that's not really your business or relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe it does just boil down to her not understanding what rent stabilized is. Because it sounds like she thinks, oh, I should have just done it in the first place, which then wouldn't have been like a favor, I guess. It was just like a little inconvenience in her mind. So anyway, we agree. We kind of see both sides. It sounds like you're more on the page of this friend did like not that much wrong. I think the communication was pretty terrible. And it felt like a bait and switch of like, oh, it's no big deal. Just leave it in my name. Like, let's just leave it in my name. No big deal.
Right.
Versus
but if someone said that to me, I would be like, no, like it's going to be in my name.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think the problem is when she brought this up, I think there was like a lack of communication at the time of like, wait, I'm so confused. Like I thought it was just in your name only. Like, why now do you feel like you have ownership over this? When the way it was presented was that it was just, we were just leaving it like that, but now it was mine. Like, it felt like she didn't call her out on it. Maybe because of what you're saying, maybe there was a little bit more of an understanding of what was happening here.
I think there's a little bit of like a revisionist history maybe going on here. Yeah. Just because like, why would the apartment even only be in her name? I'm assuming they didn't get the apartment together.
Right.
Like I assume it was the friends before.
Friendship ending over money, basically legal stuff. It's a tough one. And even this, we see a lot of like the boyfriend moving out, moving out with your boyfriend. Like that's sometimes can be really hard. But she seems resolute. She's not interested in rekindling this friendship. But I do think if what she's looking for is how to release some of her anger, I think you can look at it as like maybe your head was in the sand a little bit. Like maybe you did play the part here. If you want to take some ownership over it to release some of that anger towards her, that maybe you were in a little bit of denial about why this was the arrangement.
I don't think it's a friendship ending infraction to me. If it is to her, that's fine. I think if she did want to like smooth things over, I think she could have a conversation with this person and say, hey, coming back and taking back the apartment, which is your right to do, as you've hinted at over the years, could have been done with a phone call and could have been done in a way that gave me a little bit more grace. I'm going through a hard time. You knew that. I would have appreciated it if, like you would have given me more time or offered to let me stay or just done something to show that you cared about my current situation.
And I think something about the way it was presented was a little sketchy. I will stand by that.
Assuming it was presented as she's...
Yes, saying. I wasn't there. But if you do look back and you really feel like the idea that it was rent stabilized was like not part of the conversation at all, like that was not that elephant of that huge thing that makes the whole thing matter was not in the room, then I think that can be addressed.
I'm just trying to look at it from like the friend's side where she's like, I had this rent stabilized apartment. I both, one, didn't want to lose it if I ever need it again. And two, I have a friend who I'm moving in with my boyfriend who would probably appreciate the lower rent. I'll let her stay here and pay the rent. And then if I want to move back, it'll be open. And hey, she hasn't even been living there for 6 months. She's been abroad. So she probably won't care that much about
that too.
leaving.
That too.
And my boyfriend just quit his finance job to find his real passion. And like, this makes sense. This seems like
makes sense to get
we've been
rent.
talking. I have this apartment that's so much cheaper.
Yeah.
That's
I
in my
live
name.
there. 3 bedrooms for 2 people in the middle of a city. Sounds pretty sweet.
If it were me, I would look at it like, oh, I had a great deal for 3 years. I kind of lucked out with this situation. Now all good things must come to an end. And I could see maybe she's like a little irritated that she's about to lose this great deal, especially because she's probably looking at other apartments on the market and realizing she's probably going to be paying a lot more for a lot less. That's probably you don't think the friend probably looked at the market before she asked for the apartment back?
Right. And she could have in the beginning then just been like, my boyfriend's going to move in here or you've got to leave.
That's what I'm saying. I think the friend is thinking like, I did you this favor for a while. Again, I think she benefited from too. Now that's kind of done.
Hope that helps.
All right, let's do, I guess this is kind of another ethical dilemma, but another Betch assist. Let's do it.
Hi, Dr. Naomi and Jordana. Love the pod, and I'm a bride seeking some insight. My fiancé has a college friend who's a female and strangely asked that since her husband cannot attend a wedding, if she can bring a friend. We are in our mid-30s and found this very strange and rude. I've never met her. I went into a rage after my fiancé argued that it's the same as you didn't know the husband or wife of a person you invited, and she would otherwise feel lonely if attending alone. It's 3 hours away. I do not care if she feels lonely, and honestly, it's rude to text someone's significant other when you haven't met the bride. Our initial rule was only significant others. My wedding is around 100 people and there are no children allowed. So my goddaughter and nephew aren't coming, but a random friend is allowed. Please help me calm my nerves from a not so inviting bride.
What do you think?
I don't think this is rage worthy. I think it's a little rude. I probably wouldn't do it. I wouldn't ask if I could trade out my +1 or not +1. I could trade out my invitation that was addressed to my significant other for someone else. I wouldn't ask for that. But if someone's a little rude and ballsy and they want to ask, you don't have to say yes, but I don't think the thought, honestly, if it were me and it were my wedding, I would do it. I don't care. You were paying for the extra person anyway. Like, let that person have a great time. The more people that are having fun at your wedding, the better the vibe's going to be. And then you look like a really super cool, chill person that's like nice. It doesn't sound like it's a budget issue. It sounds like it's a principle issue. Yeah. I get it. It's a little ballsy and rude, but if it were me, I'd be like, sure, go ahead. I want you to, if you're having fun, I'm having fun. Like,
is it a little tacky to ask? Sure.
Yeah.
But I also think it's like, if she doesn't know I could see where the husband's rationale is too, her fiance's rationale of like, you didn't know the other person either. you were going to have them. I think the fact that there aren't kids there is her choice. It's not like she's inviting them instead of the kids. Like she only had room for 5 people and they're picking this person's friend over her niece and nephew. Like she could invite her goddaughter and her nephew.
Yeah, that seems like she's grasping at straws for like to make this whole thing feel worse than it is. Like she's here and they're not. Like that's just her trying to convince herself about why this should feel bad when it really feels bad because you just don't want this random single woman, I guess, or whatever at your wedding. I don't know.
And I can understand that, again, especially if it's like a budget issue, but she budgeted for the friend to have a +1. I don't know if it's his, she says it's his college friend who's a female. That probably annoys her in its own right.
Yes. I was going to say there's probably like, she mentioned that for a reason. It probably like your college friend that is a female that you did like, I'm not saying they hooked up, they probably didn't, but like, you know, you're in that wild college phase together and like, you know, she's coming and she's bringing an unknown friend, you don't know, you know,
right.
I'm sure there's some deeper thing about this random woman coming if it was, you know.
I agree. I think because she also said it was rude to text someone's significant other when you haven't met the bride. Has she met her? Is that what she's saying?
Yeah, I couldn't figure out if that was like she texted her to ask.
I don't know. That was confusing. But like, it seems like she has a problem with this friend, which is sort of where it's coming from. I kind of think a +1 is a +1. If bringing someone is going to make you, the whole point of a +1 is to make the guest feel like they know someone.
More fun, right?
Yeah. And she says it's 3 hours away. If it's 3 hours away and like, I don't know if they have any other college friends coming, but like, if she didn't know anyone and like if I had one friend from college and I didn't know anyone and I live 3 hours away from him and I don't know anyone in the wedding party and I want to come to support my friend, but I also am going to have no one to speak to the whole night because it's their wedding. So they're not going to be hanging out with me, but I want to come and support them. My husband can't go. I could understand the urge.
Totally. I could understand. I do agree. It's just tacky because it's just not what people do. But
what if she was single?
Right.
I kind of think it's nice. I think it's like, we talk about how a relation, like all the perks of people being in a relationship and all the things that you get. It's like, why wouldn't a single person also want someone to support them in a social situation that's like a little weird?
I agree. I think it's just a good look for you to be like, yeah, sure. We were going to do this anyway. It's like good vibes, right? This person's coming to your wedding. It's nice if they feel like warm and fuzzy towards you. They're going to be more, I don't know. I just think it's good vibes and everyone who's having fun is going to just make the party that much more of like a good feeling. So I get it. It's tacky. If it were me, I'd probably just say yes. But
I agree.
I wouldn't have raged at the at the fiance for pointing out the other side. Like I get the other side.
Yeah. The other side to me makes sense. It's like, it's not like, unless she was super close with the friend's husband. Sounds like she's not. A random person is a random person is a random person.
Right. Yes. You barely know him. You barely know her. It's someone to stand next to them. It doesn't. Yeah. Unless I get, maybe she feels like there were some other people. She didn't say this, so she would have if it was the case. Like she had some other good friends where their new boyfriend wasn't invited or something because they weren't a significant other. Just doesn't really want care about this person having a good time. Like she literally said, like, I don't care if she's lonely. So there it is.
Yeah, I think the more fun your guests are having, the more fun your wedding will be. So I was generally, and maybe it's a little different because we had a destination wedding, but this is a destination for the friend. It's 3 hours away.
Yeah, she's definitely either going to have to drive back that same night 3 hours, which then you want her to even have like a driving buddy, or she's staying over, which she probably is.
Yeah.
And it's a destination wedding.
I had a friend that, a single friend that I gave a +1 to, and she brought a friend. Because I wasn't like my thing wasn't like, and let me know if you're like seriously dating someone by then and I'm gonna invite them. It's like, let me know if you want to bring someone.
Right.
It's also like you have to get a hotel room. You can split it with someone. It's like,
I agree. Chill out.
Is that what you say in your therapy sessions?
No. But I do think like,
yeah.
You chill a little bit. It's going to be okay. You're going to have the best time. Step out, watch yourself going through this as your 95-year-old self, planning your wedding and seeing this other little person in the corner who like has someone to dance with or like, sit with at the table. So she's not, because what she's going to do? She's going to take out her phone when she's sitting at the table and be like sitting there on her phone, which isn't like the vibe you probably want at your wedding. You want people like there and socializing and hanging out.
Having fun. Yeah.
Yeah.